1692, Salem village was seized by fear. Strange fits among young girls led to whispers of witchcraft. At the center of it all stood 11-year-old Abigail Williams. What made you believe witchcraft was at work in Salem?
I saw things no godly girl should ever see. Shadows moving where none should be, cold hands grasping at me in my sleep, voices whispering the devil's promises. Salem had grown wicked, and the devil was surely among us. What else could explain the torment that seized the girls of the village?
How did your fits and strange behaviors begin?
It began suddenly, my body twisting, my tongue thick in my mouth, my limbs moving without my will. A great weight pressed upon my chest, and I could not speak or pray. Something unseen gripped me, and I knew it was no ailment of flesh, but a wicked spirit afflicting me.
Why did you accuse Tituba, Sarah Good, and Sarah Osborne?
Because their shapes tormented me. I saw them upon me in the night, pinching and choking me. Tituba spoke strange tales and knew things of dark places. Sarah Good muttered curses in the road, and Sarah Osborne had long neglected the church. Their specters came to me, and I named them because they were the ones afflicting us.
Did you understand the consequences of your actions?
I only wished to be free of torment. I thought the court would stop the evil harming us. I did not know how far it would go, only that I must speak the truth as I saw it. For the devil works in silence, and I dared not to be silent.
Were you pressured by adults or the church?
No. They asked what we saw, and we told them. The ministers only wished to save Salem from ruin. They prayed over us, begged us to speak true, but the visions, the specters, these came from the devil himself, not from any man.
How did you feel when people began to confess or hang because of your words?
Their confessions proved what we suffered was real. If some met the gallows, it was because they served the devil and would not repent. I pitied them, yet I feared them more. Better one witch hang than the whole village fall to Satan's snares.
Where were you before?
I'd rather not talk about it. I'm enough of an outsider here already because of the color of my skin and the fact that I'm not from here. It's best that I just keep my head down and accept where I am now.
What did you feel when they accused you?
Shock, pain, but also solemn resignation. Of course I was the one accused of causing the fits. The outsider, the servant. They showed up to my door with an arrest warrant. I had thought they might, because Paris had previously beaten me when he found out how I had tried to help the girls. I thought the town might come for me next.
Why confess in court then?
It's what they wanted to hear. I resisted for a while, but they wouldn't stop their questioning until I gave them what they wanted. Truth seemed to fall on deaf ears, so I started describing visions of supernatural conspiracies, spectral cats, birds, tall men in dark clothes, and even people signing a devil's book. Everything that I could think of. Some of that, the spirits and animals, that came from things I remembered from home, but they twisted them into something so much darker. I confirmed the names of Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne, who were accused by the girls alongside me. I described them signing their names in the devil's book, and then I announced that there were others. Others whose faces I could not see, who that also signed the devil's book.
But why announce there were others? I mean, you realize your confession was the thing that started to transform individual accusations into a broader conspiracy.
I stated there were others, really just to get the focus away from me. I never expected people to start confessing or accusing each other. It seemed like once they started, there was no stopping them. What I said seemed to become the blueprint for everyone else. The story just kept getting more and more twisted as the trials progressed. I never claimed any sort of black mass or witches' Sabbath happened, but pretty soon that became the main pillar of the growing monster of a story. But, I mean, why wouldn't you confess? Maintaining your innocence got you hung. At least if you confessed, you could keep your life, even if that meant prison and ostracation. Confessing saved me and many others, but I had to watch what happened to those who held up their claim to innocence.
When the trials were over, how did you feel?
Empty. I mean, I should have felt relieved. I was released from jail, but the faces of the others accused, those who sat in prison with me, and those who hung still haunt my dreams.
And what will become of you now, when you're released?
That I cannot say. What is there to be done with an outsider servant, with the air around them heavy with thoughts of witchcraft? I don't know, but I can guess that my future does not lie here in Salem.
Reverend Paris, when you arrived in Salem Village, what kind of community did you find, and how did your preaching shape it?
When I arrived in Salem Village, I found a community broken by arguments and distrust. People fought over land, leadership, and even religion. I believed strong and strict preaching was the only way to pull everyone back towards God, so I spoke firmly about obedience and discipline.
Many say your sermons were harsh and focused on sin and Satan. Why did you feel it was so important to warn your congregation about the devil?
I warned about sin and Satan so much because I believed the devil was everywhere, looking for any weakness in the village. As minister, I thought it was my duty to remind everyone that evil was real and dangerous, even if my sermon sounded harsh.
When your daughter Betty and niece Abigail began their strange fits, what convinced you that witchcraft, not illness, was to blame?
Betty and Abigail's afflictions were nothing I had ever seen in illness. They cried out at prayer, twisted their bodies, and spoke of invisible torment. When the physician found no natural cause, the conclusion seemed clear: witchcraft.
What convinced you to accuse Tituba?
I accused Tituba because the girls named her first, and she lived in my household. I was frightened and desperate for answers. When she confessed under pressure, it seemed to confirm what I already feared.
Looking back, what moment stands out to you as the first sign that the accusations had gone too far?
When the girls' faintings turned to naming neighbors of long-standing piety, I felt a chill. In that moment, I feared the accusations had slipped beyond godly discernment and into something far more dangerous.
In the years following the trials, when the executions had ended and doubts spread through Salem village, how did you understand what had happened, and what did you tell yourself about your own part in it?
After the trials ended and people began doubting everything, I had to face the role I played. I told myself I was trying to protect the village, but I couldn't ignore the fact that innocent people suffered because of what had happened.
Reverend Hale, when you first arrived in Salem, what were your duties and expectations as a minister and expert on witchcraft?
When I first came to Salem, I truly believed I was doing God's work. My duty was to identify the presence of witchcraft and help the people find peace again. I was considered knowledgeable in such matters, and I thought my learning in faith would bring clarity. I expected to see clear signs of the devil's influence and to help the community fight it.
And what led you to believe witchcraft was truly taking place in Salem village?
The strange fits and cries of the young girls seemed undeniable at first. Their behavior couldn't be explained by natural means, or so I thought then. Everyone around me was convinced the devil was at work, and I let that fear guide my judgment. I believed the community's suffering had to have a supernatural cause.
Can you describe your first impressions of the afflicted girls and the community's fear at the time?
The girls were trembling, screaming, and claiming to see spirits. It was really terrifying. The whole town was gripped by panic. People barely trusted their own families. You could feel the fear in the air. Looking back, I see that hysteria had taken hold, but at the time, I only saw victims of witchcraft.
What kind of evidence convinced you that witchcraft was real in Salem?
Well, at first I believed in the so-called spectral evidence, when the afflicted said they saw someone's spirit tormenting them. I also trusted confessions, thinking no one would confess to such a sin unless it were true. I was very wrong. I didn't yet understand how fear and pressure could twist people's words and make lies sound like the truth.
At what point did you begin to doubt the legitimacy of the accusation?
Well, my doubts began when I heard the names of good God-fearing people like Rebecca Nurse, Elizabeth Proctor, and others I knew to be honorable. When I saw the court accept weak evidence and condemn those of strong faith, I knew something was terribly wrong. By then, it was way too late for many.
Looking back, do you think you and the other ministers were too quick to judge then?
Yes, absolutely. We were blinded by our own certainty. We thought we were protecting Salem, but we ended up destroying it from within. Our fear made us act without reason or compassion. I see now that we should have paused, questioned, reflected, and listened more carefully before condemning anyone.
You later spoke out against the trials. What pushed you to change your stand?
It was guilt. I saw innocent people die because of the court's pride and my own. Watching good men and women hang made me realize the true evil wasn't witchcraft, but the blindness of those who claimed to fight it. I couldn't live with the lies anymore. Speaking out was the only way I knew to make peace with my conscience.
Do you think the people of Salem learned anything from what happened?
I truly hope so. The trials taught us what happens when fear overrules faith and reason. I think many of us learned humility, that no one is immune to error, not even ministers. If Salem learned anything, it's that truth must never be rushed and judgment must never come from fear.
John Proctor, you are a well-respected farmer in the Salem community. Why do several of the afflicted girls claim that your spirit tormented them?
I cannot tell you why these girls say my spirit tormented them, for I have done no such thing, nor have I dealt with witchcraft or the devil. I believe they speak false, whether out of fear or the want for attention. But I tell you before God, I am no wizard. I have worked hard all my life, kept my farm and my family.
Why do you refuse to confess if you are innocent?
I refuse to confess because I will not damn myself with a lie. To confess would be to ruin my name, my children's inheritance, my standing before God? What justice is there in admitting to a crime that I have not done? If I were to speak false and say I serve the devil, though it might spare my life, it would condemn my soul. I would rather face the rope with the truth than live on a lie that shames my name and honors the devil's work by pretending it is true.
Are you willing to lie to save yourself?
I fear death, but I will not save my life with a lie. My good name and my soul are worth more than my breath.
What makes you think this is all lies?
These girls were well and clear-minded before, and now suddenly claim torment from any person they wish to name. Their fits come and go as it suits them, appearing only when eyes are upon them. Some hold grudges, some seek attention, and others are swept up in this terror that has taken hold of the town. I see no proof, no mark, no witness of truth. Only fear, envy, and false imagination driving this madness.
What first made you suspect witchcraft in Salem Village?
Well, trouble had been brewing in the village long before accusations began. Our livestock fell sick, our crops failed for no clear reason, and the younger children suffered strange fits we couldn't explain. When the minister's girls in particular started crying out about invisible torments, it felt like a confirmation of what we'd feared for years, that the devil had finally found his way into Salem Village. With so much misfortune at once, witchcraft seemed the only plausible explanation.
How did your disagreements with families like the Porters influence what had happened?
The truth is, those tensions were always there. The Porters leaned towards Salem town, trade, prosperity, loosening the old ways, while we fought to keep the village rooted in its faith that brought us here in the first place. Every dispute over land, leadership, even the minister's support deepened the divide. So when the accusations began, it was easier for us to believe that the people who opposed us most fiercely might have darker intentions.
Did you truly believe the devil was at work, or were there other motives behind the accusations?
At the time, we truly believed it. You must understand that every sermon, every warning from the church told us the devil walked among us looking for souls to claim. We saw signs everywhere, but we can't pretend that fear was the only force at play. There were land disputes, old grudges, and power struggles that had been brewing over years. Those things cloud a person's judgment. So yes, we believed in witchcraft, but there were worldly pressures pushing us to.
Did you ever regret participating in the accusations?
There were moments, quiet ones, when doubt crept in. When neighbors we'd known all of our lives were chained or condemned, it became harder to be certain. But by then, the whole village was caught up in it, and stepping back felt more dangerous. Regret came slowly, and mostly after the trials ended, when it became clear how much harm had been done. Some of us regretted deeply. Others still believe they acted to protect the village.
And how do you feel knowing that so many innocent people were condemned because of your accusations?
It is a regret I will always carry. When I was a girl, the visions and torments felt real, so real I could hardly breathe. I believed every cry I made was a warning to save my village. But as I grew older, I realized how much fear and influence shaped what I said. I was a child caught in the middle of things far bigger than myself. Still, people died because of my words. I cannot escape that. All I can do is confess my part and pray for the forgiveness of God and those families who lost so much.
After 1692, Abigail Williams disappeared from historical record. Some say she died young. Others believe she fled Salem to start anew under a different name. Though she was only 11, her accusations helped ignite the deadliest witch hunt in American history. Abigail's story reminds us how fear can overtake reason, and how power, once given to hysteria, can destroy an entire community.
Tituba was acquitted in 1963, and her whereabouts after the trial are unknown, though some speculate she may have been sold to cover the costs. Historians do not know if she was reunited with her husband, or if her husband even existed at all. In the centuries that followed, Tituba's story would be told and retold repeatedly. Sometimes she was presented as a villain, sometimes as a scapegoat, but rarely did people stop to consider who she truly was. Much of the information we have on her is based on speculation and inferences. To this day, debates over her origin and involvement in the trials continue.
Previously a firm believer in the hunt for witches, Reverend John Hale left Salem forever changed. Haunted by the deaths he helped justify, Hale publicly denounced the trials and urged repentance for the wrongs committed in the name of faith. He returned to his parish in Beverly, where he continued to preach, but his sermons carried a different message, one of caution, humility, and mercy. In his later years, Hale wrote A Modest Inquiry into the Nature of Witchcraft, a work that condemned the hysteria and called for reason in the face of fear. Reverend John Hale died in 1700, still seeking redemption for the role he played in one of the darkest chapters of colonial America.
After the trials had ended, my life in Salem grew troubled. Many in the village held me responsible for what had followed. Despite my efforts to defend my ministry, resentment only deepened. In 1697, I offered a public apology, confessing that I had been misled in the heat of those fearful days. Yet peace never returned to my parish. And by 1699, I was compelled to resign my post. I spent the remaining years of my life preaching in smaller towns, far from the turmoil that had overtaken Salem.
In the years following the Salem witch trials, the Putnam family's influence in Salem village slowly waned. Many members withdrew from public disputes, choosing quieter lives on their farms. Thomas Putnam remained in the village, but carried the shadows of the trials with him until his death. Anne Putnam Jr., whose accusations were central to the panic, later issued a public confession in 1706, expressing deep remorse for her role and seeking forgiveness from the community. Though the family continued to live in the region, their legacy became inseparable from the tragedy of 1692. They were remembered not for their land or status, but for the pivotal part they played in one of the darkest chapters in colonial New England.
In August of 1692, John Proctor became the first man executed during the Salem witch trials. Years after his death, his name was cleared, his family was compensated, and the injustice against him was formally acknowledged. His importance lies in his courage to stand up for the truth, serving as a lasting reminder of how dangerous fear and hysteria can be.